to the entertainment Talkin' Sports.
What is going on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video. Hope everybody's staying safe out there. Going to have a few videos up today, including an interview with Bengal that I hope to have up on the page. Should be conducting that in a couple hours. In addition to that, I will be live with OGR Sports tonight on the channel at about 8:45. As I do my Q&A, I'm going to start having guests on for that. But in this video, I'm going to talk about Patrick Graham and his defense with the New York Giants and which players that I think best fit it and could break out this year for the New York Giants. Now, I didn't include any rookies in this video because, well, they're rookies. It's kind of, it's kind of hard to estimate how rookies will break out. But Xavier McKinney, for example, I think could do very well this year for the New York Giants. But I just want to explain why I didn't put him on the list. I think he's incredibly versatile, and I think it's a big reason why the New York Giants drafted him is because of his fit with this defense. But I think there's a number of players on this defense that really fit what Joe Judge and Patrick Graham want for the New York Giants. And what they want is versatility, and they want high upside guys that they could get the most out of them with better coaching. And I think the New York Giants have a number of guys on this team who maybe haven't quite lived up to their expectations in the past, maybe partially due to poor coaching and maybe not being in the best schematic fit. And I'm going to go over a number of those guys in this video. And I don't really think there's many guys in this defense that I think will struggle in this scheme because I think a lot of the guys on this team are versatile. Now, we all know Patrick Graham is going to run a multifaceted defense, and some of the things that the detractors will point to is the fact that, well, Patrick Graham didn't have good numbers last year. But what I will say to that is the Miami Dolphins struggled mightily due in large part to the fact that they didn't have any talent on that team. Going into the year last year, the Miami Dolphins were expected to win one game, maybe two. Some people thought they might win 0. People thought they were tanking. They went out there, they won 5 games. But a big reason why the New York Giants will be successful this year, if they are, is if some of these players that I'm going to mention in this video do take off and exceed expectations. Also, cornerback play will be paramount. A guy like DeAndre Baker, if he does play with the New York Giants, I've said time and time again, I think a guy like that is an X factor for this defense, and we're going to jump into it right now as to why. First, I wanted to give you guys just a quick overview of the type of defense that Patrick Graham will be running, and some of the things that he plans to do with this defense, some of the things he did with the Miami Dolphins. I think it's going to be an aggressive defense. Graham had a great defensive scheme in place. The two major play calls of the Miami Dolphins defense were blitzing and man-to-man coverage, and it's why I point to the cornerback play. If you're going to be blitzing a lot and you're going to have a lot of man-to-man coverage, well, your cornerbacks are going to be left out on an island, and they're going to be asked to be able to, do a good job on the opposing wide receiver, because when you're sending 5-6 guys, well, it's going to make it easier for the quarterback to make completions if he has time to throw the football, and you're going to need strong cornerback play. Now, another thing about this defense, it's kind of built on deception. It's, you don't, and I'm going to do a film study on this when I have an opportunity to do so, but I've watched a lot of film of the Miami Dolphins last year, and it's built on deception. There's a lot of plays where they'll have 5-6 guys up at the line of scrimmage, but 3 will drop back in the coverage. They don't want the opposing offense to know what they're going to do, and they send blitzes from all over the football field, whether it's up the gap, up the middle from the linebacker, whether it's on the outside from the slot corner or the safety position. Graham was very clever with his blitzing packages, using a variety of linebackers and defensive back blitzes. In Miami, Graham would also send in delayed blitzes to really disturb an offense. This was not just done in between the gaps. The blitzes came from different spots on the field. The Dolphins blitzed on 35% of their snaps. That's over a third of the plays. And 41% on third down, which was the third most in the league. The Dolphins ran man-to-man coverage 50% of the time in the 2019 season and would often show blitz and drop back into coverage. This was a great strategy in the Graham defense, keeping opposing offenses on their toes because of the constant blitzing formations. And like I said, it wasn't incredibly effective if you look at the defensive rank and the Dolphins' record. But of course, you need talent on a team to make it work, or at least some talent. And I think the New York Giants definitely have a lot more talent than what the Miami Dolphins had last year on their defense. They have a lot of former first-round picks, second-round picks, third-round picks, guys with high upside. And we're going to get into some of those guys right now. And the first guy we're going to talk about is Gibreel Peppers. Gibreel Peppers is an incredibly versatile player. He's a punt returner. You could use him as a linebacker at times. You could use him up at the line of scrimmage as a blitzer off the edge. Of course, he could drop back in coverage as a traditional safety. He could cover the tight end. He could cover the slot wide receiver. He could do a lot of different things, but I think he is best used as a playmaker, similar to a guy like Landon Collins, a guy up near the line of scrimmage that can make plays for your defense. That is what he will do. And in this scheme specifically, I expect him to be used more than he was under James Bettcher. And here's why. Here's an interesting tidbit from that same article. In Miami, Graham implemented single high coverages on roughly 3/4 of the defensive snaps versus the 2/3 of single high coverage that Bettcher ran with the Giants in 2019. With Graham now with the Giants will almost always have a safety in the box. And Peppers brings a skill set that might fit that exact role. Coming out of Michigan in 2017, Peppers was seen as an utility safety that played better closer to the line of scrimmage. And the same could be said for Xavier McKinney. So I think they're going to be able to show a lot of different looks with these players in their secondary, use them in a different role. Like I've said all along, I think this is a positionless defense. You can't even really put a label on a guy like Peppers, and he may be the most versatile player in this defense. So I think he is a guy that could really take off if he could remain healthy with the New York Giants this year, which is why I think the New York Giants extended him on the 5th year of his rookie deal. I think they see a great fit. The next guy we're going to talk about is a guy that I think a lot of New York Giants fans have started to kind of fall off the wagon on. I think expectations were set maybe a little too high for Lorenzo Carter last year, and he definitely disappointed in the sack department. He had 4.5 sacks, which is, I think, right around what he had in his rookie season, and we didn't see much of an increase there. But one thing I will say, James Bettcher used him in a lot of different ways. They dropped him back in coverage. They used him up at the line of scrimmage. He was used in a lot of different ways. He was not used exclusively as a pass rusher, and I think that may have something to do with his lack of sacks last year. A guy like Marcus Golden, for example, was asked pretty much to be a pass rusher, and that's it. He went out there, he got 10 sacks. Lorenzo Carter, to me, is the perfect fit for this defense. Now, will they get the most out of him? I don't know. Another thing I'm going to point to is Kevin Sherr, who coached him at Georgia, is now with the New York Giants, is known to be a great linebackers coach. Now, he's coaching the inside linebackers. Bielema was coaching the out, but they have familiarity, and if you go back and read some of the things that he had to say about Carter while he was at Georgia, he thought when they brought in Carter initially that he was going to be one of the greatest players in Georgia football history. Sure is a big fan of Lorenzo Carter, so am I. I think this year he could burst onto the scene. The New England Patriots were very much interested in him as well during the draft, I remember in 2018, because they thought that he fit their scheme very well, and he probably did. I've seen player comparisons to Jamie Collins, and of course, that would lend itself to the defense that I think Joe Judge and Patrick Graham are looking to run. He's also a player with tremendous athletic ability. It's why he was drafted in the early 3rd round by the New York Giants based on potential, not as much production. And you would think this coaching staff, Joe Judge has expressed that, they're looking for guys with high upside. I think Lorenzo Carter fits exactly what the New York Giants would be looking for, and definitely is a guy that could break onto the scene this year for the New York Giants. The third guy we're going to talk about, and I tried to give you guys different players in all different areas of the defense, is Leonard Williams. Leonard Williams, I pulled up a stat I think about a week ago, had 19 quarterback hits last year, which was the most by an interior defensive lineman, at least according to PFF standards, by 5. His numbers would indicate that he should be better in terms of getting sacks this year for the New York Giants. But the main reason why he's on this list for me is his versatility. This is a guy that could line up in a variety of ways for a defense. You could line him up on the inside, the outside, in both the 3-4 and 4-3 alignment. I think he could play the end in both. Incredibly athletic for a man his size, and I think he did. You saw the effect he had on the New York Giants defense last year. Guys like Dalvin Tomlinson played a lot better. He definitely improved that defensive line, and I think with better coaching, he should have a very strong year for the New York Giants. And all three of these players that I mentioned are definitely X factors, and whether or not this New York Giants defense can exceed expectations. I do like Leonard Williams a lot this year. I think he could be a big key factor for the New York Giants. In addition to him, I think Dexter Lawrence also could take a huge step forward, but I think Leonard Williams' versatility definitely lends itself to what the New York Giants are looking to do. Also, he's another player like Lorenzo Carter. I mean, you look at this kid, this man, I should say, was a top 5 or 6 pick, whatever it was with the Jets. A lot of people thought he was the best player in that draft. So he's another player with a lot of upside, with good coaching and the right scheme, could really take off this year. And then finally, the last guy I want to talk about was Blake Martinez. I don't think Blake Martinez is getting talked up enough, and I was guilty of this as well. When the Giants brought him in, you heard all the reports, you saw the videos, people knocking his coverage skills, right? Because he kind of struggled last year. Well, Blake Martinez has come out and said that a major reason why he came to the New York Giants, I'm going to pull up a quote, had to do with Patrick Graham and Joe Judge. He flourished in 2018 with Patrick Graham as his coach. I could see Blake Martinez getting back to that. One of the things he pointed to in several interviews was last year he felt like he was asked to not be as aggressive, and the numbers back it up. He blitzed on 64 plays with the Green Bay Packers with Graham in 2018. Last year he only blitzed, I think, 23 plays. It was cutting like a third. And he said that lack of aggressive nature with the scheme kind of resulted in poor play. He felt like he was on his heels at times. And I think with this scheme, I think the Giants will get the most out of him. A big reason why he's here, in my opinion, is because Patrick Graham, I think, thought he fit this defense and he thought he could get a lot out of him, being that he coached him at Green Bay just 2 years ago. This is what I want to pull up, what he had to say about going to the New York Giants. Going through the process, I just thought about what kind of fit would be best for myself individually, my play style, and those types of things. Martinez said during a Tuesday appearance on NFL Network's Good Morning America. Obviously, looking into potential places I could go to, New York jumped off the tape for me. Just seeing the guys that are on that team, the young talent across the board, obviously a new head coach, Joe Judge, and like I said, he'd later go on to talk about Patrick Graham and how he fit there. Another guy I could have mentioned here was Fackrell. He had 10.5 sacks with Graham as his linebacker coach the year before. Of course, that was before they acquired Za'Darius and Preston Smith. But I do think Blake Martinez could be that man in the middle that the New York Giants have missed for quite some time. Do I think he's going to be an elite linebacker? More than likely not. I think he does have some limitations, but I do think he's being a little bit underrated. And I think with this defense, he could have a very strong year for the New York Giants. So those are some guys that I think could maybe exceed expectations and break out this year for the New York Giants in a Patrick Graham-led defense. There's a number of other guys I could have mentioned. I could have mentioned Julian Love. I could have mentioned James Bradbury. I think a lot of guys could be that guy that breaks out. Will all of them? Probably not. That's just not being realistic. But if a couple of these guys break out, the New York Giants defense could be a lot better than I think a lot of people think. As always, guys, if you liked what you watched, please subscribe. Drop a comment. Maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.